All right. Good morning, everybody. Let me fix this. I like my little graphic here. I don't normally have the video graphics, but I thought this one was fun. Today we have, as Eric pointed out, an oddly titled message, Connected and Lonely. And we'll get to why that is in a second, but we have this modern day dilemma, and this comes in the middle, kind of towards the end of our series on covenant friendship, and we are, in a sense, taking a break from the idea of pursuing a covenant friendship. Not really, but more so we are kind of dropping the floor, so to speak. We're showing where we have a real lack of this friendship that we've been talking about in the series, and hopefully this message really kind of isolates how important that relationship, the covenant friendship, really is, and how real the issues that we face in today's era are. And so we're going to jump in with this study that I found, and I'm not going to say that this is like the end-all be-all of information on loneliness and that we should shape our lives based on the numbers of this. It's not the point of presenting this study, but rather just to give us a general idea of what we're talking about. This study was done, and they surveyed a bunch of people, and here are some of the highlights that I found from this study and tried to boil it down to the parts that we're talking about. 21% of the respondents reported suffering serious loneliness. Within the context of this survey, that meant that respondent was either mostly lonely or lonely all the time. Those two at kind of the top end of the range. They were given a range for all of the questions that they had. The top two of the range, 21% of the people responded to that. So some people felt lonely sometimes, rarely, or never. And 21% of them said that most of the time or all of the time they felt lonely. 81% of that 21% said that they are either anxious or depressed, whereas the rest of the people that were not that lonely, only 29% said that they were anxious or depressed. So immediately we have a very strong correlation to the ideas of anxiety and depression as attached to loneliness in society, which makes sense, but we have very clear numbers here to sort of speak to that question. And then these last two I thought were really interesting and where I kind of want to go with this study. The lonely individuals compared to the less or not lonely were significantly more likely to select sources of blame. Essentially, they were given a category or like a long list of things that they could blame for loneliness, and again, given a scale. And I have a chart to show this in a second. But they're given a scale to say, like, what is to blame for the loneliness. And the lonely individuals were just really likely to blame a lot of things. And that makes sense. But catch the second half of this. Except for technology and not feeling connected to religion or spirituality. So those that said that they were significantly lonely and those that they said that they weren't significantly lonely were equally as likely to select technology and not being connected to spirituality as the causes of loneliness. I thought that was really interesting because the other categories are a bit more general than that. And then the last thing is that technology topped the list at 73% of the people that were surveyed said that this was a significant cause of loneliness today. And then not spending enough time with family was 66%, and then being too busy or exhausted, 62%. Again, it's a range, so it's not saying that they thought that it was the only cause, but that it was a very significant cause. So continuing on, here is the chart. Boy, you're not going to be able to read any of that. I really tried to make those as big as I could. But the only thing that you really need to worry about is just that all the way at the far left here is technology. That's where I'm going to end up going with this, is that 73% of the people said that technology was a significant cause. Pretty large gap in between that and the second place, and much larger than a lot of the other categories on the list. And again, I thought it was really interesting that those that said that they were lonely and those that said that they weren't lonely were just as equally likely to select technology as a significant factor of loneliness. And so I want to go there today because this is a real problem that we face, and we all face it in one way or another. Either this is something that we personally are experiencing, or as we saw based on the numbers, around 1 in 5 people are severely lonely, with 73% of these people that were surveyed suggesting that technology is a major factor to that. And this is not an anti-technology sermon. Anybody that knows me would have a heart attack to believe that that's what I'm preaching about, because I love technology. I love it. It's awesome. But this is a real problem that all of us are facing. I don't know exactly how many people are in here right now, maybe 40, 50, something like that. That means that maybe statistically, obviously I hope that this is not true, but statistically around 10 of us are severely lonely. Think about that for a second. Statistically, about 10 people in this room are severely lonely, as in they live life continually struggling with this day to day, and that a very high likelihood, 80% of the survey at least, had major anxiety or depression attached to that loneliness. This is a real problem in today's age. And the obvious point that is being brought out is that if so many people are lonely and so many people can connect the dots of loneliness to technology, there's a problem here, and we need to get to the bottom of that problem. And that's what this sermon is about today, trying to make it a real point for us in this modern era. There we go. Now, I'm going to pause really quick because I've been saying technology, and that's the category. And I'm going to not disagree with the survey, but I'm going to specify a little bit. Is technology the problem? Yes and no. Yes, I do think that technology is a major problem with loneliness, but I want to prove a simple point, is that 80% of the people around in the survey were not severely lonely, and they had roughly the same amount of technology. So more people had technology and weren't lonely than were. So technology isn't the reason that people are lonely, in the sense that if you have technology, you're going to be lonely. We know that for a fact. So what is the problem? And the problem I would propose for us today is that the idea of what it means to be a friend has been redefined. When we deal with technology, there is a redefinition of what it means to be a friend. And I made a list for us. Come on. Doing so good. Yeah. All right. So what's changed? And I have a list of things that has changed from previously what would have been considered a good friend to now, or what is now considered a good friend to what would have previously been considered a good friend. So the first thing is quantity. And I think this one makes sense to a lot of people if you are on social media. What is the major numeric of social media? Followers, friends and followers. And does it say how good the friends and followers are? Do you get like a score for how good of a friend that person is? No. There are actually some social media platforms that gamify this and give you points based on how many friends and followers you have. The goal of modern day friendship is quantity. Whereas, of course, if we were to go back even very recently in history, pre the idea of social media and pre-mass technology, in terms of like the internet and that sort of stuff, not technology as in like a screwdriver, we would see that quality is considered the goal of friendship. That it didn't matter how many friends you had, it just mattered what quality of relationship those friends were. And I'm going to go into each of these a little bit more. That's basically going to be the rest of the sermon, is comparing the two of them. But I want to briefly run through all of them so we can kind of see. The second thing is ease. We have created this idea that a good friend is somebody that is easy to work with, that does not have a lot of problems, that does not create a lot of drama. And if we look back in the past, the idea of a good friendship was actually somebody that was willing to commit effort in the relationship. So ease versus effort. And then similarly but different is comfortability. The idea that with a good friend, I do not need to engage in hard conversations. I don't need to engage in things that make me uncomfortable. A good friend is somebody that makes me feel comfortable. Whereas previously, a good friend was somebody that was honest with us. That in spite of making me feel uncomfortable, I could trust and I could rely on in that. That's a very biblical idea as well. We'll get to that. Usefulness. How much does that friend get me? That is the idea today. What do I get out of this relationship? Versus faithfulness. I am a friend because I am committed to you as a person and as a friend, not based on your usefulness to me. And then this is a big one with social media, comparison. The idea that I need to look good in comparison to my friends versus the idea of selflessness where I desired for my friends to look good. And then the last one is freedom, the ability to be able to say whenever I want to, I don't want this relationship anymore. It's not worth the time and the effort versus the series theme, covenant. The idea that I am committed because I have agreed to pursue this relationship with you, and I am making a covenant with you, just like we're going to see with David and Jonathan later on. So let's go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. And I normally try not to do this because, especially since I am young relatively, I don't have a ton of like long-standing life experience to just be able to pull life stories from and use myself as an example. But I feel like I have a very unique relationship with this topic because I am young enough to have grown up with technology, but old enough to have been old enough to see the rise of things like social media and in the internet becoming big, to where I really do personally have both perspectives. I remember what it was like to be a kid and to have relationships that had no connection to social media, online gaming, all of these different things. I remember what it was like to have my friends' phone numbers memorized so that I could call them. And I know I'm not making myself sound that old to some of you, but I do. I remember what it was like before this stuff. And I have seen how things have changed as these ideas and these platforms have grown in popularity over the last 15 years. And so I really think that I can speak to some of the differences here. And I already mentioned this, but in the idea of quantity versus quality, I remember when Facebook first started getting big, and I remember this is terrible. I remember being 12 when it first got popular. And if you remember, Facebook originally had an age limit, they may still have it, of 13, where you couldn't get a Facebook unless you were 13. And I was over a friend's house, and I wasn't supposed to do this, but I lied about my age, and I made a Facebook account. And I remember, no, seriously, that night, I spent probably 3 hours scouring trying to friend request people so that I could get my number up. I'm dead serious. I remember like going through the list of all of the names of my school and of this church and of that church, and I remember sitting there and thinking how awesome it was to have this many friends. And it's so silly, like it's so dumb, but it's real. Like this is a mentality that I had as a kid, but I think more seriously, this is a mentality that people have now. That, as silly as I'm making it sound, that's real. People look at it that way, that they are very satisfied when they look and they see a number like 500 or 1,000 on their account, that they are so proud of the relationship status that they have with all of these different people, and to them, that's enough. To them, that means that they are popular, that they have good relationships. And we know that this is going to cause problems in our lives. Proverbs 18:24 couldn't get much clearer than this. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. This is the theme verse for the whole series. But the idea is very simple. It doesn't matter how many friends or followers I have on social media. It doesn't matter how many people I am connected to online. I may very well find myself extremely lonely. And that's why I titled this sermon, Connected and Lonely. I know, again, Eric was astute in saying it probably should be but lonely. But no, it really today is connected and lonely. We have a serious pursuit of connection with people in all sorts of different platforms. And you can pick whatever platform you want, whether it's social media, online gaming, podcasts, music artists that you get to connect to. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. We have mass connection and mass loneliness at the same time. And so the first one, and I want you to, as we're going through, I'm going to, spoilers for the end of the sermon, but I'm going to basically call you to challenge you to look at these comparisons yourself this week and to just figure out, are any of these real for me, and how am I going to combat this mentality? So just do yourself a favor now and be thinking about them as I go through this list. Is this real for you? And try and be as honest as you can with yourself, because I'm not trying to be blunt with technology in the sense that it's bad. Again, I love technology and I think there's a lot of good things about it. But if you find yourself redefining what a friend is based on technological goals, it's going to be a problem. It just really is going to be, and the Bible is going to continually show us again and again. So let's go to the next one. Ease versus effort. Keeping up with people, following their posts is maybe a very big one for this, where I feel like I am connected, I feel like I know a person, I feel like I have a relationship with that person because I know what's going on in their life, because I can see their posts. The reality is, not only do I not really know them, because I'm only getting snapshots of their life, I'm getting curated selections of what is actually going on in their life. Most of the time I'm not getting the real stuff, the stuff that actually matters. But also, I am getting fulfillment that prevents me from feeling the need to reach out to them. If I didn't follow them, I would find myself realizing I have no idea what's going on in their life. I would realize that, hey, it's been 3 years since I talked to this person. Maybe I should reach out to them. But I never feel that way because, well, hey, they posted about their kid last week. I know that their kid just had a birthday, and they're 4 now. Wow. I just found out that I thought my cousins were 3 years younger than they actually were. Not doing a very good job on that one. But I mean, the same is true with online chatting and gaming, where I feel like I'm connected with people because I get to spend time with people on a regular basis, and I get to connect with them frequently, but maybe not qualitatively. Because, and again, not like there's anything wrong with following people or chatting online or gaming with people or whatever it is, but the reality is that that's not a substitution for relationship, that's a substitution for leisure. The problem is that it's formatted and sent to us, advertised to us as relationship. When online gaming becomes the relationship that I have with a person and I feel like I'm a friend with them, I'm not. I have no idea what's going on in their life, and let's just be honest, as a Christian, I'm definitely not speaking Christ into their life. They're not speaking into my life. We're not living a spiritual life together. We're living a digital life together. So I have the ease of being able to connect with a lot of people, and I can use that for good, but when that becomes the definition of what it means to spend time and to be connected with people, I lose the effort. And 1 Peter 4, 8 through 10 says this, "Above all, keep loving one another earnestly. Since love covers a multitude of sins, show hospitality toward one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace." How are you serving your friends? Are you serving the 600 followers that you have? Are you putting personal effort and using your God-given gifts to serve those people? And are they serving you? That's what the Bible defines as a covenant relationship. That I am going to continue to connect in that way, not this way. That way, not this way. Sorry. But let's keep going, because I mean, there's a multitude of these things, and we all kind of are going to find ourselves with at least one or two of these that we're going to struggle with. Comfortability versus honesty. I think this one might be a popular one with people. Talking from behind the screen, if you've ever heard that phrase, keeping conversations safe, and having relationship on my own time. Relationship in the Bible is never talked about as comfortable. It never is. Proverbs 27:6 is just one verse, but oh man, you can find so many. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Friendship, relationship, the right way, the biblical way, isn't comfortable. Not that there can't be comfort, not that I can't comfort and you can't comfort, but here's the reality. If you're comforting me, it's because I've let you into the uncomfortable. Unless I do that, you can't comfort me. Unless I have a real relationship with you, you're not going to be able to do your brotherly, sisterly duty in Christ to me. And of course, I'm not going to be able with you either. You know, the only way that we serve people, the only way that we speak into each other's lives is through honesty. And this is the idea, Joel talked about it before already in the series, but I'm kind of covering a broad swath of things, so we'll repeat it again. Confession. That's the idea. Confession is not sitting in a booth and counting my sins to somebody. Confession is to make plain that which is inside. To say it. When I confess, so like for instance, we talk about confession with sins, but the Bible actually talks about it as a positive thing too. We confess Christ. I proclaim that I believe in Christ. If I am going to confess, like the Bible tells me to with my brothers and sisters, I need to make plain my life to them. Verbally. I need to say it. and probably not from behind a screen. Worst case, I believe that could be positive. I've had some meaningful relational conversations over text and over phone call. It's not impossible. But I think that's secondary to the ideal, which is face-to-face, the ideal of me being able to actually be in your life. So comfortability versus honesty. Usefulness versus faithfulness. I only reach out when I want something. That's real. I make sure to stay out of sticky situations. As soon as I see some mess over there, I am over here. And I act in the way that I think is going to get me the most attention. When I am in the midst of a group of people, when I am online, whatever it is, my goal is attention on me. My goal is not to show love to you, to develop a relationship with you. My goal is not to be a good Christian brother or sister. My goal is for me. To get people to pay attention to me, to get people to love me, not other people. But, I forgot to write the reference, sorry. Somewhere in the Bible, verses 23 and 24, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Does anybody have the reference off the top of their head? Thank you. Matthew 5. I should know that. All right. So I love this verse. I brought this verse up probably like 5 times in the last year in like sermons and stuff. I love this verse. It's so cool. It just flabbergasts me that in the context of this passage, he is saying that this important rite or sacrament of going and giving a gift at the altar before God comes second to the relationship with your brother or sister. That's crazy to me. But I love it because it makes so much sense. Like, what is the point of going and trying to do service to God when really the church and the service of God is the people? You know, like, what's the point of me giving a gift at the altar and doing godly things if I'm not godly to the people around me? You know, that's Christianity. That's sharing Christ and his love with people. So if I only have relationships based on the usefulness to me, even if it's perceived as godly, like leaving a gift at the altar, what's the point? I'll just spoil it. There is none. There is no point. There's no point in that relationship at all, and I would argue that it's probably negative because, again, just the same way as following somebody on social media and getting a continual feed of their life where you feel like you're connected. When you reach out to people and you have a little bit of connection with them, with all of these, it's going to essentially fill your mind with the thought that I have a connection and prevent you from feeling the need for connection. I watched a video recently. This is just off the top of my head, but it was a really good video on dopamine. And the idea is simply that with dopamine, it's not the feel-good drug that we always talk about. It is the want-to-feel-good drug. Basically, it is the chemical that creates craving in our lives. And so we feel good because of it, but we actually often will get the dopamine hit before the thing ever happens. They've done tests on like monkeys and stuff like that where they'll basically give them a way to get a dopamine hit, and then they'll show them a picture of that thing and they'll get the same dopamine hit. And in this way, we create in our brains this idea of relationship and this dopamine hit of friendship. Like, ooh, I have friends. Before we ever actually create the relationships, and what we do is we create a habit of easy dopamine hits by getting friends on social media, of being able to reach out to people regularly for online gaming or different things like that. Whatever it is, those easy ways of reaching out give me the same dopamine hit without the reality of the relationship and without all of the biblical benefits that true relationships have. If you look into the biblical idea of friendship, all the benefits come as the relationship gets deep, not on the surface level. And all of the relationships that I'm creating through social media and all of these other things are shallow. So I'm pretending, I'm faking out my body to believe that it actually has friendship and relationship without any of the benefits. All right. Sorry to the people online. Read the slides. It's all there. Okay. So comparison versus selflessness. This is a really interesting one because the idea of comparison has dramatically shifted in today's age. The former idea of comparison was still there. I'm not going to say that people haven't been comparing themselves for eons. But a lot of the comparison that people had was based on function of life, like the ability to have money or have power or have like freedom to do things, as opposed to being basically indentured into a work field or I guess basically just the way that we compare ourselves today is extremely frivolous compared to the former way of comparing ourselves. So much of it is based on these very external things to real life, like vacations and aesthetics and body figure and all of this sort of stuff. Very little to do with the actual function of life that as a Christian, you shouldn't be jealous or envious of anything. But if you were going to be, that would be something to be jealous over, is like somebody having more money than you so you could like not have to work all the time. Again, we shouldn't be jealous of that. But it makes more sense than the crazy stuff that we do, like people going overseas on vacation every other week, and we're like, wow, their life is so much better than mine, even though they're crippled with depression and stuck in a bottle and all of these problems that people have. I mean, if you've ever, don't, because it's going to be depressing, but if you've ever looked into the lives of like movie stars, they stink. They're bad, you know? Don't be jealous of them because your life's probably better than theirs, you know? So the idea of comparison is a very social media driven thing because we have this platform that essentially rewards us for doing a better job of curating the like nice aspects of life and making me feel special because other people are jealous of the things that I have. It's a really sick idea when we actually get into it. But the whole point is that we're not supposed to be comparing ourselves to each other. We're not supposed to be comparing numerics. We're not supposed to be jealous of people's vacations and relationships. And again, just to counter what we just talked about with honesty, we're not supposed to hide our flaws in order to look good in comparison. That's not a life-winning achievement. It's not going to do us good. Instead, Ephesians 5:21 simply says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. I don't need to be better than you. I need to be serving you. You know, that's going to make me better. It's going to make you better, and it's going to make the kingdom better. You know, and again, just so that we're being clear and honest, having more money, having more vacations, having a better body figure, all of these different things can create momentary happiness, but they're not going to create a better life. Because we have these people that have the ideals in these things and they hate their lives. They're part of the 21% of lonely people, you know? So submit to one another and build relationships and actually enjoy life, you know? Cut against the grain that the society and social media is telling you is going to work, because we have proof, numbers, that it doesn't. It doesn't work. And then, I think this is the last one. Uno más. Yeah. All right, freedom versus covenant. I felt duty bound to bring this one in and to end with this one, because again, we're talking about covenant relationship. But I do think that it's important, regardless of that. The idea of relationships, and we see this a lot with like marriage relationships, actually. We have seen this really weird trend where divorce rates have actually gone down, but it's because the amount of marriages has gone drastically down, because people are just choosing not to get married so that they have the freedom to leave whenever they want and they don't have to go through the courts. And like, if that doesn't create a real picture of what's going on in the way that we view relationships today, I don't know what will. But the idea that I don't want to commit to you because I'm ready with my bags packed, even though I'm deciding to live with you and to reveal myself to you in ways that nobody else should see, and I am committing the deepest parts of my heart to you, but my bags are packed. That's psychotic. That's crazy. And yet, this is the reality that we live in. That's what the numbers show us. And so we give ourselves a way out whenever people need us. We try and make excuses. We make sure that nobody can tell us what we should do, and we leave when things get hard. But I told you before that we were going to look at David and Solomon, and I only have a little bit just to show the covenant relationship, but just on your own time, go and read the story. Their relationship's incredible. What they went through in just the small snippets that we get in the scriptures, absolutely incredible. The love that they had for one another is incredible, and they're from completely different life stages. One's way older than the other one, like basically a farmer peasant to a prince. I mean, it's incredible, the relationship that they had. So just go and read it if you want a beautiful biblical example of friendship. But verses 1 through 3 here. After David had finished speaking with Saul, the souls of Jonathan and David were knit together. And Jonathan loved him as himself. And from that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. You know, this is the relationship that we want. And the reality is, we can't have this kind of relationship with everybody. That's not the goal. The goal, like we talked about in the very beginning, is quality over quantity. I can't have a covenant relationship that is deep in life on life with everybody, not even everybody in this room. That doesn't mean that I ignore, that I don't try and connect and have a relationship. We have a lot of Bible that talks about that as well. But the reality is that today's problem is severe loneliness, and it's because we have lost the idea of a friendship that is this committed. A friendship that is willing to sacrifice in order to preserve the relationship. And so, if you find yourself, one more side. If you find yourself questioning what it means to be a friend, spend some time looking over this list. I'm going to pull it up one more time. But spend this time looking at this list and digging in the scriptures, looking at the relationships that were there, looking at the way that Jesus treated his disciples, looking at the way that people were willing to sacrifice for themselves. I wanted to end with this because I think that it's a full circle point that in Genesis, God made this really good world. He said that basically things were as they were meant to be. And the very first problem that is ever mentioned in the scriptures is this. The very first lack that God ever points out that says, hey, something isn't right, is that it is not good for man to be alone. It's not good. We were made for a relationship. And I don't mean that in the cheesy way that we say that, like on a coffee mug, we're made for a relationship. I mean, you're going to be broken as a human being without covenant relationship. You're going to be wrong. God said it was not good. So this isn't just a, hey, make your life a little bit better by trying to pursue a relationship. This is, hey, this is how you have life. This is what it means to live as a Christian, is to be in relationship with people through Christ, through the freedom that we have from sin, and through the struggle that we are in together. That's covenant relationship, and that is how, in this modern day of connectedness, we can fight loneliness. So one more, just the last slide, really quick. If you want to take a look at this, maybe if you want to take a picture of it or whatever you want to do. Those are the main ones that I came up with. It's not the only ones, but these are the major differences that I've seen in the change of definition of friendship from former times, like pre-social media and whatever, to now. But just go ahead and take some time this week to look at these, to consider them, and to ask the question, how has my definition, my perspective of friendship really changed? Am I on the right? Am I following these? Or do I find myself on the left sometimes, struggling with the way that I view friendship?